What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing amazing. If you guys are new here, my name is Chandler Molyneux. I'm the host of the Act First Show, and this is the show where we make sales simple for online coaches. And a part of making sales simple is personal development. I truly do believe that personal development is the foundation to being successful in sales. And this episode, we're going to be talking about alcohol. I've actually been free of alcohol for 104 days now. This is the longest stretch that I've gone without a sip of alcohol, probably in the last, since I was 16 years old, honestly. Yeah, since I was 16 years old. I'm about to turn 30. So I guess in the past 14, 15 years, this is the longest stretch that I've gone without alcohol. And I have 6 specific talking points that I'm going to bring to you guys today. Now, who is this message for? If you are very happy with your relationship with alcohol, this probably isn't the podcast. This probably isn't the YouTube show for you. This is for my former self, all right? For the past 4 years, I've wanted to improve my relationship with alcohol and failed every single time. I wanted to drink less and would find myself waking up on Sunday morning pissed at myself or regretting the night before because maybe I had 1 too more or two too more, and now my Sunday is more or less ruined because I can't do the things that I want to do because I'm hungover. And that was a pattern, like I said, for about 4 years. So I'm speaking to the individual who wants to drink less, but maybe is struggling to drink less. And like I said, I have 6 takeaways. Thankfully, this has been a very successful journey. My wife and I are both on this together, 104 days, no alcohol. And like I said, I'm going to get into these 6 takeaways here in just a second, but I feel it's appropriate to give you my backstory on my relationship with alcohol. I'll try not to make this too long because I know you're probably here for the meats and potatoes, but I do think context is important. So I'm actually going to go way back to my first sip of alcohol. My first sip of alcohol, I was 15 years old. And very typical first drinking story. I was with my buddies and we were in the basement of one of my buddies' house, and in the basement was the liquor of his dad. So his dad's liquor cabinet was downstairs, and we cracked open a bottle of gin. We each took a shot. Now, I had a buzz, but that was my first sip of alcohol. Then from there, my first time getting drunk was junior year of high school. And funny enough, my first time getting drunk was actually with my now wife. So the first person to get me drunk is the person I ended up marrying. It's probably not a moment she's proud of, but she was older than me. She was a senior. I was a junior. She took me to homecoming, and obviously at homecoming, there's a party at the end, and we were drinking, I don't even remember what it was. It was Burnett's, I think is what it was called, some sort of flavored vodka out of a water bottle. And yeah, I got drunk. I definitely got drunk. That night, she gave me a hickey. Caitlin gave me a hickey. We dated, and then the rest is history. Obviously, we're married now. So that was the first time I got drunk. Very typical high school, kind of party, right? Now, my relationship with alcohol from there definitely got significantly worse. High school and college, I was a partier. I would consider myself a partier. I wouldn't consider myself the partier where I was doing hard drugs. I never did hard drugs in high school or college. The first time I did hard drugs was actually outside of college, and I'll get into that in just a second. But I partied in high school and I partied in college. And my relationship with alcohol then was not good because typically I was the person who couldn't stop. I have a very addictive personality. I have a very go, I'm all in type personality, all in, all out. And when I would drink in high school and college, I would drink to the point of being drunk, very drunk. Some nights, especially in college, some nights blacking out. I blacked out once in high school as well. And the one time I blacked out in high school, I actually threw up in my friend's car, and they had to drive me back to my parents' house, and they carried me to my parents' front steps, and my dad carried me down to the bed, threw me on the bed, and it was a nightmare. But yeah, my relationship with alcohol was go all in. And anytime that it was present, I would drink it, and I would drink it to the point of being very drunk. Then out of college, so I graduate college, and my party days continued. I started making a lot of money right out of college. I moved down to Austin. When I moved down to Austin, I was introduced to harder drugs. started dabbling in harder drugs, and every weekend there was always drinks, right? It wasn't the same kind of relationship in high school and college. Like I wasn't drinking to the point of blackout, but it would be 3-4 drinks at a dinner. Sometimes we would exceed that, sometimes we'd do less than that, but every single social outing had some sort of drinks. And not to go on a side tangent here, but I do think it's appropriate to also talk about like my parents' relationship with alcohol. So my mom does not drink at all. I've actually never seen her take a sip of alcohol in my whole entire life. My dad definitely has a bad relationship with alcohol, and my dad's parents had a bad relationship with alcohol. My dad's sister went through AA, got sober. My dad's mom went through AA, got sober. My dad, truthfully, and between you and I wish that he has gone to something like that. He's 60 now. He's probably never going to do that. I would imagine if he did, I would be really taken back. I wouldn't say that my dad is a alcoholic in the terms that you and I would think about an alcoholic, but he definitely drinks a lot. And I would say if he is considered by definition alcoholic, he's a very high functioning one, but he's not the type of person who's going to like wake up and start drinking. He's more of like, he grew up in an era where after work you drink, right? So that was my dad's relationship with alcohol. But getting back to me, I don't do hard drugs anymore. I don't party like that anymore, obviously. But over the past couple of years, as my partying went down, my relationship with drinking still kind of stayed the same. It wasn't to the point of like I'm blacking out every time I drink, but in social settings, I had to drink, right? I felt like it was a massive crutch for me. I would say I don't know. I have a difficulty being very social. It's definitely not a strength of mine. And you would think me talking to the camera, I would be able to do it. But I'm more comfortable talking to the camera sometimes than I am talking to people. It's just not a strength of mine. And just being vulnerable there. So I relied heavily on alcohol during social settings. And, every weekend we'd go out to dinners, and 2 to 3 drinks per dinner was a norm. And we would go out to dinner Friday night. We'd go out to dinner Saturday night. So every weekend I was having anywhere from like 4 to 6 drinks. And sometimes it would be more. Sometimes, we would go a little bit more indulgent. But I noticed myself becoming more of like a lush. Not an alcoholic, wouldn't really drink Monday through Friday, but more of a lush, especially on the weekends. And I wasn't liking it. It affected my health. I gained a lot of weight. I looked inflamed. I didn't feel good. My weekends, I felt more tired coming in on a Monday than rejuvenated and rested, right? It would cause tiffs in my relationship. Like sometimes the alcohol would lead to anger and it would cause tiffs in our relationship. And I wanted to make a change. And for probably a solid 2 to 3 years, I said I wanted to make a change, but then would never make a change. And that really erodes at your confidence because you'd wake up on a Sunday and be like, shit, I did it again. And that would be week in, week out. Shit, I did it again. Shit, I did it again. Shit, I did it again. And in 2024, I just kind of got to the point where I was shedding a lot of layers. If you guys keep up with my story, I ended my previous business in 2024, and I was just shedding a lot of layers. I feel like and currently still am, going through somewhat of a metamorphosis and changing my values, my beliefs. I'm now on a walk with God, where previously I wasn't religious at all. And yeah, I'm just changing the way that I live. So at the end of 2024, I said, drinking is not something that serves me. I'm starting a new business. I'm training for a marathon, and I just don't see drinking as a part of my life. I just don't see it adding any value to my overall goals. So it started off as, I'm going to go 90 days. I'm going to go the first 3 months of the year, no drinking. And we did it. And we did it with pretty easily as well. Like I wasn't really thinking too much about drinking. It wasn't really something that consumed my thoughts, which was something like I knew this time was different because I've gone long stints of no drinking before, not as long as 90 days. I believe 75 days was my previous longest. And in the back of my mind, I would always crave a drink. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to have a drink. And this time around, I never had those cravings. And I knew something was different. Something really changed inside of me where it's like, man, I just don't want to go back to what I was doing before. I was fed up. I was sick and tired of saying I was going to drink less and then and then not drinking less. So we're 104 days in, and these are the 6 takeaways that I have. Now, am I never going to have a drink again? No, I don't think that I'm going to be 100% sober for the rest of my life. That's not the goal of me doing this right now, to see like how long I could be sober for. The goal of me doing this is to change my relationship with alcohol. What I want and what my outcome is I want to truly be able to have a drink when I truly desire to have a drink. I don't want to have a drink because it's a crutch socially. I don't want to have a drink because I'm trying to escape from stress. I want to have a drink because it sounds good and it sounds like it's going to enhance and enrich the moment that I'm in, whether it's a dinner or a holiday. I don't want to drink every weekend. Heck, I would love to be able to say that I, have a couple of drinks a quarter, a couple of drinks a year. I know that might take some time to get there, or maybe it won't. But that's my end goal, is to drink when I truly want to, not because I feel like I need to socially, or not because I'm trying to do it for escapism. So if you relate with that, if you feel like you're in that position, here are my 6 takeaways so far. And I really do truly hope that this helps somebody. That's my goal of recording this today. All right, so takeaway number 1, I'm going to start with a heavy hitter. You do not need alcohol as a social crutch. You just don't. Like I said, this was probably the biggest reason that I would drink, is because I was so nervous socially. Literally, I shit you not. I worked as a server years ago, like 10 years ago at this point, and I would drink before my shift because I was afraid of the social interactions. Going on a date. If I was going on a date with a girl that I never met before, I would have a couple of shots before because I was afraid of the social interaction. I would use alcohol as a crutch to help me out socially. And those are examples of how I would do so. And, there's lesser examples, right? You go out to a dinner with a new couple, or you go out with friends. Like, I would have a drink to ease the tension and just kind of, open me up socially. But what I've realized in the 104 days that I haven't had alcohol, I actually like myself better in social settings without the alcohol. Because when I have the alcohol, I just become like a different person. I become very social and very outgoing and all this stuff, but that's not really who I am. I'm a chill guy, I would say. I'm a pretty chill guy. I'm pretty reserved. I can definitely have a great conversation with you. I'm very good at asking questions and listening and, creating conversation in that way. I would say my conversation style is like, I don't need to be the one who's talking all the time. I'm totally fine with asking questions, listening, and contributing into the conversation with talking points from that perspective. But what I've noticed is I really like myself in social settings sober. I feel like I'm more calm. I feel like I'm more at ease. I feel like I can think better. I can, if I have a joke that I want to say, I can think about it more clearly than just blurting it out, being kind of tipsy and things like that. And then also, as somebody who, socializing isn't like in my nature, it's a skill that I've had to build, and it's a skill that I want to build. You cannot possibly build that skill if you are continuing to use alcohol as a crutch, because alcohol, unless you want to use alcohol for the rest of your life in social settings, I don't think you do either. Like it's going to be impossible for you to build that skill, right? Unless you say, hey, I'm not going to use alcohol for social settings and actually continue to build that skill. It's going to be uncomfortable, right? You're going to feel awkward at times, but I promise if you can get through that phase, which for me, that phase wasn't really that long. It was like a couple of hangouts with people. And I was like, oh, what was I afraid of? Right? It seems like this daunting thing, but I promise you, a couple of sober hangouts and you're going to be through that gap and you're going to be like, what was I afraid of all along? So that's takeaway number 1. Takeaway number 2, weekends used to be, all right, let's have fun. Let's, have a couple drinks. Let's get that buzz going, right? And I would come into Monday and I'd be like, yeah, I had fun, but man, I'm fucking tired, man. I'm fucking tired. And what weekends are now, being sober, weekends are more energizing, more eventful, which I'll explain in a second, and more restful, right? More restful we don't need to dive into that one. That's obvious, right? Alcohol makes you tired. It's a depressant, right? But more eventful was the biggest interesting one to me. Being sober, you have more energy and you could actually do more things, right? Because once you drink, right, sure, you're going to have fun for the time that you're drinking, but the rest of the day is ruined. Like on a Saturday, if you go to brunch, you're going to be hungover, you're going to be tired by 2, 3 o'clock. So now your afternoon and evening is ruined. And then the next day is ruined, right? Because now you're hungover as well. You're not going to be operating at 100%. But when you're sober, right, you are pretty much energized all the time and you can constantly be doing things. So now on a weekend, I'll go for an 12-mile run on a Saturday. And then when I'm done, I'll go play pickleball. And then when I'm done, I'll hang out with my wife. Then we'll go out to dinner. Then on Sunday, we'll go to church. We'll clean the house. We'll get working. We just we're able to jam pack so many things on the weekends that my weekends are actually more eventful now than when I was drinking. And that was extremely interesting to me. And it's gotten me like more into endeavors that I used to love. Like I used to be like athlete to my core. Like I was like coded an athlete. And once I moved down to Austin and kind of like, grew up, so to speak, got a business, I stopped doing athletic endeavors. And this year I'm training for a marathon and I fucking love it because a lot of my weekends, I do my longest run on Saturday for the week. A lot of my weekends are very athletic and that lights me up. That excites me. I love, being able to use my body in an athletic way. So number 2, the weekends have become more energizing, more eventful, and more restful. All right, number 3, you have more true connection with your partner, right? So previously, we'd go out to dinner and I'd get 2 to 3 drinks. I'm a big guy. It takes me to get a buzz, I need at least 2 drinks. To feel really good and like, all right, I'm in a good spot right here, 3 drinks would be, that level for me. Past three drinks, I'm getting a little sloppier, especially if it's like a margarita. But anyways, go out to dinner, have 2 to 3 drinks. We'd have great conversation, but it's all stimulated from the alcohol, right? It's not true. In my opinion, that's not true connection. It's falsified connection. It's fake connection because you're having a substance curate that connection. So what I've noticed with, Caitlin is I'm able to now actually build true connection because we're sober and we're both sober, right? And the conversation is real. The conversation is authentic. It's not created because we both took a substance, right? Alcohol in this instance, right? It's actually true, genuine connection. And what I've noticed is at first it's a little weird, right? At first you're like, oh, I'm used to having this high flying, stimulated conversation from alcohol. At first you're like, oh, okay, this is definitely a little interesting. But then after a couple of dates, right, now you're like, holy shit, like I really understand her. She really understands me, right? We're able to still create amazing conversation, but now do it sober instead of using alcohol. And that makes you feel more connected to your partner than those conversations, right? Those conversations when you have alcohol, you feel connected during the conversation, right? But then the next day you're like, I'm not really sure what we talked about kind of thing, even if it is just a couple of drinks. But sober, you can feel connected, you can remember the conversation, and it hits more emotionally. Alcohol, I think, kind of blocks out certain emotions. All right, point number 4, my life is less of an emotional roller coaster and life becomes a lot more still, okay? And this is great. I actually like life being more still, right? Because before when you're drinking, right? When you drink, you go up and then you go down, and then it's kind of this roller coaster ride of being up and down and, different emotions. But when you remove alcohol from your life, sure, it has little ups and downs. We're all human, right? But more or less, it's a straight line. And life becomes a lot more still. And when life becomes a lot more still, you can think clearer, right? You can think about your goals more. You can, self-reflect. You can analyze. You can make better decisions, right? It just becomes less anxiety, right? I think a lot of anxiety is being unsure, what decision am I going to make? Oh no, like I can't reflect very clearly on things, right? A lot of anxiety is just stemmed on not being clear. But if you remove the alcohol, the clarity increases and the anxiety goes down. All right, so that's point number 4. Point number 5, more consistency with my goals. And this was a big one. This is probably the one that I beat myself up over the most. So the 2 to 3 years that I was trying to drink less, I just wasn't hitting my goals as consistently in all areas of life, right? So my relationship goals, my fitness goals, spiritual goals weren't even really a thing. Career goals, right? I wasn't consistently hitting my goals, and I would come to the end of the week and be like, man, I didn't get that done, or I could have done that better. But now, being a sober person, it's like, damn, okay, I'm in a great flow. I'm getting the things done that I said I was going to get done. I'm excelling at a much higher clip. I'm more efficient with my time, and things are just way better. You're way more consistent with your goals. And when you're more consistent with your goals, you have a higher level of conviction, a higher level of self-belief, and life becomes a lot better from that point. All right, my last one. All right, point number 6, my health markers are significantly better. So I wouldn't say I had a health scare. It was a shock. I would say I had a health shock, but at the beginning of the year, I did blood work and I was considered pre-diabetic. And I was like, what the heck? This doesn't make any sense. I work out 5 times a week. How am I pre-diabetic? And, there's no definitive answer on why. I do think some of it has to do with my former steroid use when I was younger. But the other part of it is, lifestyle. And when you're drinking is a lot of sugar, and your body might have a harder time metabolizing that sugar, which then that sugar sits in your blood. And when it sits in your blood, you become pre-diabetic, or you become, unfortunately, diabetic, which I never hit that point. But when I figured that out, it was a huge shock. I said, all right, got to make a big difference. That was a big reason why as well that, I decided that, hey, I'm going to go sober for a little bit here. And my health markers, I got my blood work done. My health markers are significantly better. And, you're... This is what we don't remember about alcohol because we're so conditioned in our society that alcohol is normal, but it's legitimately a poison. Legitimately, it is a poison. We are putting poison in your body, right? And if you want to live a long, healthy life, which I value having a long, healthy life, you can't really take in too much poison. So that was another big wake up call for me. All right, y'all. Like I said, I struggled with this for a really long time. 2 to 3 years I think is a long time, right? Prior to that, I drank a lot, right? From the ages of 16 to 29, I've never had a longer than a 70-day stint of no alcohol. And I want you to ask yourself that. Think about the first time you had a drink. Think about now. What was the longest stint you went without drinking alcohol? It's probably not that long, right? It's probably not that long, which is sad to think about. Because when I had that self-reflection, I was like, wow, that's sad. That's really sad that the longest time from the age 16 to 29 was 75 days of no alcohol. And I only did that once, right? That's insane. So very proud of myself for going 104 days, but I want to spin this on you. All right. If you are the person that wants to drink less, if you are the person that keeps saying, I want to drink less, I want to drink less, I want to drink less, and you haven't done it yet, just give 90 days a try. Let this be the motivation. Let this be the inspiration. Let this be the video that you say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to put the bottle down. I'm not going to have drinks. I'm going to go 90 days. And go 90 days and then reassess at the end of the 90 days what you think your relationship with alcohol will be. Maybe you'll say, I'll never have a drink again for the rest of my life. I'm enjoying this way too much. Maybe you'll get to the point where you finally only truly have a drink when you want to have a drink. Or maybe you'll go back back to exactly where you were before because you realize that you don't really care either way and you'd rather just have the drink. Hopefully that's not the decision, but I challenge you, if you watch the whole entire video, to go 90 days. Let me know in the comment section. Really appreciate you guys listening or watching on the YouTube, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.